Excuse me. Welcome to this Technovation workshop. This is the first of the Technovation workshop that we're having. So today we have two special guests, Greg Ogola from the United Analytics team and Howie Chen from DESA Statistics Division, Gender Statistics Branch. And Greg is going to be introducing us to some tools to manipulate data. And we have a resident gender data expert, Howie. So hopefully it will be a very interactive session. It's going to be a very fast-paced session because we only have 1 hour and a half and it's a workshop. So some people are not going to be able to keep up with all the practical exercises. It doesn't matter. The idea is to give you an introduction and to get you excited, and we can work with you after the event. So thank you very much, and Greg, here you go.
Okay.
And again, we're live on YouTube.
Okay, so thanks, Jorge, for that introduction. Like Jorge said, my name is Greg Ogola. I'm from OICT. We are in the Analytics and BI team. And what our aim is to try and do is to introduce and to promote as much as possible self-service analytics within the Secretariat. My aim is to make sure that you never need me in order for you to build your own dashboards. We want you to do it by yourself. This training is part of what we try and do, and we have this regularly, quite regular. So there's going to be one next month, one a month after that, and we also have a community where we coordinate. So without further ado, let me then just start by giving a quick introduction about what we're doing today. So the aim is to use Qlik as a desktop tool for you to be able to analyze some data. And the theme that we have chosen for the training today, hello. Okay. The theme that we've chosen today is gender and gender statistics. So about a couple of years back now, we worked with the 16 in the in DESA and the DESA Statistics Division. And we were able to take some of the data that they have and use that to build some visualizations and a website from there. So that same data, we thought that since it's already public and we have people from many different offices, it was a good place for us to start with. So maybe I'm just going to ask Howie, who we worked with, to come and talk to you for about 3 minutes, not more than that, just on what the data was and what it was trying to do, and maybe little pointers for you to try and look for if you can find in the analysis when you do the data later on. All right, thank you. Howie.
Thank you, Greg. So this is the spot. Perfect. Thank you. So just a few words. Thank you, Greg and Jorge, for inviting me over. A few words about this set of indicators of the gender portal, what it's about. So this is a set of gender statistics or indicators that were approved by the governing body of statistical community at international level. We call it Statistical Commission. So it was approved in 2013 to use this set of indicators to guide national data production, national compilation of gender statistics. So what do we have there? We have 52, we call it quantitative indicators. So these are numbers that tells you whether women or girl or boy, women and men have equal opportunities to education, to employment, whether in terms of power decision making, whether we have the same ministers at minister level, how many women are there, how many men are there within the country. So, and then we also have 11, we call it qualitative indicators. So these are really national norms, whether there's laws governing or sort of having there saying women and men should have same access to employment opportunities. So these are kind of whether there should be no violence against women. So these legal environment within the country. So we have a total of 63 indicators, and our colleagues from OICT was really nice. They actually approached us and then offered their help to build this wonderful website, and it has a lot of features. Yes, so it has it shows you a dashboard to compare countries for one indicator, and then if you go to the countries, the next one, yes, this is a dashboard. Sorry. So this is a dashboard for if you are interested to look into one country. And then you can look from all dimensions and see how this country figure in.
I think we're having a slow internet connection.
Yes, so there are a lot of, so we have different tiers. So right now we have data for 45 indicators and plus all the 11 qualitative indicators. And then if you look at the data availability, that's a dashboard. We have a lot of stakeholders come to tell us to ask us what are the capacity needs. So that's actually a dashboard. We show which indicator is the weakest that we need help for capacity building, to help countries producing better data and to have more data available. And then we have the download button that countries or the users can download all the data and metadata if they wanted to go home and work on it. So that's all. Really great thanks to our colleagues from OICT, and they still get back from us for updates. So.
All right, thank you so much, Hori. So you remember we said this was going to be fast-paced. You tell me, how many indicators do we have? How many did you say?
63.
That's, come on, everyone should be able to tell me. How many qualitative, how many quantitative? All right, anyway, fine. So that's good. She's actually happy. At least you are listening. So please continue to listen to me as well. So, okay, just before we start, a couple of things. Number one is we have a few sign-up sheets going around the table. You only need to sign your name once. We used the list based on whatever you had indicated when you said you were going to join the course. So please just fill in your name there. If you don't find your name, just sign. If you don't find your name, just fill it in and sign it for us. Yeah. Number two, just to make this go a bit faster, because it's a practical session, there are going to be questions. There's going to be some places where you probably get stuck, forget a comma here or there. Just raise your hand if you're stuck. There is a few people of us around the room who will come and will help you. This is also being broadcast live on YouTube. We are going to be monitoring the comments in YouTube as well. Just put them in as comments, and there's someone monitoring that so that we should be able to get to you quickly enough. Okay. Second thing is we sent a message, which I hope you all got yesterday, that you should have installed Click Sense. So we didn't want to take part of the training time to also install. So I hope you have all installed Click Sense, and there are some files which we are going to use from the data, actually downloaded from that website which Harry just showed just now. And those are the files that we're going to use when we start the training. Okay, so with that, I think we should just get into it and just start. Any questions before we begin? Anyone not feeling comfortable about the situation? Maybe I said something that didn't. All right, so we're all on the same page. Okay, so as you're all aware, we're going to be doing Click today. And Click is a really easy tool for us to be able to use, right? So you should be able to start one easily. So we're going to start by creating an application and importing data. How the Click, you all have that screen right now, don't you, man? Right. The architecture of Click is such that it's a self-contained file, meaning that it has all the elements that you're working with, that you're trying to get data from, and that you're building visualizations with them, right? So normally when you start, you have data from different locations. You have them from files, you can have them from databases, you can have them from online sources, what they call APIs, and all those things. You can bring those all in. Click brings it in using some scripts, right? You're going to have a look at them. Don't worry so much about the scripts. There's all sorts of wizards that automatically create for you the scripts, right? So once you have those load scripts, those are used to bring in the data. And they bring in the data in certain formats. Maybe you want a few rows to have in this way, or you want a few columns, and how the columns are associated to another table from a different column. That's all done by the script to create for you what you call a data model. Okay? So the scripts come first, creates a data model, which are tables in the memory of the application, right? And then using expressions, using things like sum or average or whatever it is, you build going to be used to load the data or to show the charts in a certain different way, right? Now, for most charts, you have a typical chart has what you call dimensions, of which there can be one or there can be more. Dimensions means the actual field on the table, okay? The year, the whatever it is, the sex of the person, male or female, all things like that, the fields. That's usually called the dimension. You're going to see two dimensions when we start. And then, once you have the field, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to average it? Do you want to sum it? Do you want to count? Those we call the measures. And we're going to look at both of those, right? And once you have all these things in your hand, then you build the actual graphs and charts and visualizations. Okay? Is that all clear? I will point to someone and ask a question randomly. So if you have questions, you better ask me first before I ask you. No? You're good? What's a dimension? No, it's a joke. You don't need to worry about it. But, we're going to, once we continue, we're going to get. Yeah, one thing that we should have mentioned that we probably didn't is in order to install and work with Click, to install it on a Windows machine. Right now, they don't have a Mac or version. You can try and do the online. I don't know if it works.
It looks pretty good so far.
Click Cloud, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe you'll be able to work with it as well. So we'll see. Yeah. Okay. All right. So enough of looking at my face. Let's create an application. Okay. So do we all have Click open now? Okay. You see the button there that says create an application? All right. In the name, call it gender stats. And once you do that, then you click on create. If you get stuck anywhere, just raise up your hand and someone will get to you. Or put a comment in the YouTube, stream. Okay? So you should see a message that says you've created it successfully. Yeah? Yes? Okay, so once you're there, then open the application. And an application, once you open the application for the first time, of any data, or if you haven't done any work, it's going to come up with a screen that asks you, where do you want me to get the data from? Right? So there are two things here. There is this wizard. We're not going to use this right now. I'm going to use what we call the script editor. This is a data manager that tries to make wizards and make it easy for you to be able to get data and join. But I want to show, there's something we need to manipulate in the data that we got, that we downloaded. So we're going to use the script editor, yeah? There's someone there. Okay. So the script editor, what you see on the screen now. Okay. And generally you leave, these come by default anytime you create a Click application, in which to set the things like, for example, how are they formatted? Month, day, or day, month. It gets the settings from your computer. So you never really need to bother with this one, okay? After this, get more lines down here, or you can create a different section. In fact, we are going to create a different section. A section is just a way for you to visually separate your scripts, just in case you're getting data from many locations and you're trying to make sure that understand when you're troubleshooting. Yeah? So go ahead and click on that plus button there to create a section. And you can call this section anything, data. It doesn't really matter. That's really up to you, so that in case you have like 3 or 4 different, you give it an intuitive name, right? So you remember I said that Click can connect to many different data sources? Connect to now is a folder that has files. So under here, under this connection, new connection. You click on create a new connection. And you select folder. All right. Where do you have the files that you had downloaded? What folder do you have them in?
Downloads.
In downloads? you can put it there. Usually what I prefer, actually before we go here, maybe you can bring up the folder, the Windows Explorer. It's usually easier called in your C drive, called click data. And why we do this is if you have to share your file with someone else, if they ever need to reload the data or to refresh it, and you put it in something like C, my documents with your name, when they try and do it from a different computer, they're not going to be able to, because it's going to be looking for that folder. But if you put it in a general folder like C, click data, then all you need to do is ask whoever it is that you gave the file to also put it to the same location. Is that you actually have a folder that looks like that, click data. It doesn't need to be inside GenInstance, but just click data and then put all your files in there. Okay. Are we good? So once you have it in there, then in your create new connection, that folder, you click on the C and you look for click data. Click data is fine, don't worry, because I have several data sets that we were doing with many different things, so I put subfolders inside click data. Yeah? But for you, click data would be okay. And so just you can click on GenInstance, but they don't need to. And then at the bottom, you give your folder connection a name. We've created a folder connection. So Click understands that this connection is where I'm going to get certain files when I need to load them into memory. Yeah? Okay, so just name it as click data and click on OK, yeah? Or create. All right. So if you did it all fine, you should see a connection here like click data. Remember when I was saying that you could have multiple connections, you can get your data from files, you can get them from databases, you can get them from APIs. You can create as many connections as you need here. And the data that when the load script runs, it's going to look for whatever you had defined or indicated. You could probably make this like from a database server, SQL connection, or whatever it is. Yeah? Even for those of you who work with APIs, JSON APIs or REST connectors, and they are all available for you to be able to use them. So, shall we now try and load the data? Okay. So, the pencil icon is to edit the connection. We don't want to do that now in case the connection is not working correctly. Yeah? The connection to make sure it's pointing to the right folder, you use the pencil icon. Sheet icon with a little check mark there is how you get data. That's how you tell Click that you want to get data from that connection. All right? Click on it. It should open up a dialog box that asks you. You're too fast for me. It should get the dialog box that asks you what file you want to load. Take it out. Check out that script first. Confusion. Okay. So click on. If you clicked on the get data, then you select the file that you're going to use. So in this case, we have that we're going to use, and there's a bit of manipulation that we'll do. I'll explain it, right? So we'll start with one, right? And we'll make the edits and the manipulation for that one file. And then later, as part of the files that I gave you, you just copy and paste the rest, right? So that we move quickly, yeah? Because there are 6 files, and it's more or less the same thing we're doing 6 times, yeah? Just to move faster, yeah? So the first file we want to get is, what did we call it? Percentage, this one here, yeah? Do you have this? Open it up. Okay. So before we move any further, I want you to open up that file using Excel. I want to explain a few things there, just for you to be able to understand that. So can you open, just leave the wizard as it is right now, and open up the file itself, so that I explain what we're about to do. All right. So this is the data, okay? And this data is basically showing between the different genders the distribution as a percentage, people from particular countries and regions that are employed in the agricultural sector, right? Later we're going to compare and see how the gender female compares versus male or female between each sector and see. But the first thing I want you to notice is when we create a table, we're going to need names for the fields. And these ones, we're going to use them later as dimensions. Remember I said dimensions are the names of the fields? So what you're going to tell Click to do, row is the data, I mean, that this file that we're importing where it's supposed to do. So we want to skip this line and we want to skip that line, right? And we want to say that this line here is the header, right? Secondly, that for the purposes of what we're going to be working with today, we're going to take only the first 7 columns, right? So all these, although you'll see them there, we don't need them for now. So we're not going to load them on. Huh? Now let's go back to the wizard that you had opened to try and get the data. So the first thing you do is where you see the drop-down list there that says field names, you're going to say this thing has field names. Huh? Embedded field names, right? Then you will tell it, we want you to skip the first 2 because the field names are actually on the 3rd row, right? So where it says header size, we're going to click on the plus button to add that into 2. And how you know that you're doing it rightly is when you look here, should be familiar, they should make sense. They should be the ones that we saw on the Excel CSV file. Huh? You don't want to select all the fields, right? So you uncheck the ones which you don't want, or because there's so many, the easier thing to do is just unselect that says, unselect the checkbox that says select all fields, and then you just select the first 7, huh? Because that's all we need. Eh? Okay? Tell me if I'm going too fast. I know I said I was going to go fast, but it has to be reasonable. Huh? Let's get a bit more. We all there? Okay, I'll wait for a minute. Explain. As you select and unselect the fields, and as you make the changes on the field names and the header size, you noticed that little script was being written down there for you. Huh? This is the actual load script. That's actually what Click is going to use the data onto the application. For example, friend, if you take off this indicator name, you'll notice that one of the fields is taken off from the script. And if you put it back, then it puts it back. Huh? So this is what I mean. You don't need to, you can if you really want to get down into it. And sometimes it can get, you really want to do a complicated sort of load or modeling, actually scripting it. But for the most part, you can just use the wizards and they'll do it for you quite easily. Yeah? So once you're done with that, the important step that you need to do now on the load, it's being covered by the little small screen here, but there's a button there that should say load. Insert the script, sorry, not load. Load is when you want to actually, yes. So once you insert the script and you go back to your load editor, you should see it. Okay?
I can help you.
Well, good. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to click on the button at the top right hand of the screen that says load data. see how the data comes and how it looks like. Yeah? There are a few changes we're going to make, but just so that you see that you're in the correct path, right? So you should get a screen like that that tells you that the data was loaded successfully. Are we there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there is a little navigation icon at the top left of your screen. If you click on it and get the drop down, data model viewer. This you don't really need to work with a lot, but it helps you later when you're trying to look at how the data was loaded into the application. Yeah. So if you click on it, you should see that we have one table now. Huh? And then slowly select it. There are a few icons there that sometimes look a bit cryptic, but that's just for you to show all the fields or to show none of the fields on the table. The little, it looks like a screen at the top right-hand corner. That's for you to preview the data at the bottom of the screen. Huh? So if you click on it after selecting the table, you will create, click on the preview button. You will see the data at the bottom of the screen. Huh? And that's the data that we loaded. It gives you a summary, like how many records it imported. Later on, you can go and you can check on the spreadsheet whether the same records were imported or not. But that's just for you to know. Huh? So let's go back to the, let's go back, again, click on that navigation icon and go back to the data load editor. Huh? Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is, number one, we want to give this thing an easy to use table. So, I mean, the table an easy to use name, right? So that the next time when we try and access it or when we're building our charts, it's possible for us to be able to quickly identify what it is. Huh? Right now, the name of the table is rather long. Huh? It says 8A percentage employed population in the agricultural sector by sex data, right? Of the, before the load text, if you create an extra line, a new line, and you just say, what did we call it? Call it agricultural sector. So just write the word agricultural sector first. Don't put yes, just like that. Huh? You need to spell well, my friend. You're online. Okay. Now, usually, if you're trying to indicate that this is just one field or one item, you put square brackets to sort of put it into. If it's just one word, it doesn't matter. But if it's more than one word, you use a square bracket to. So the next time you see a square bracket, you know that what it means. Yeah. And then after that, to indicate that that's what you want to call the table, you just put a colon. What I'm talking about now is just to make it pretty, so don't worry even if you don't understand. Okay? And then the second thing we want to do is, because tables have got this same field called value, we want to make it more. We know that in this table, we are actually looking at gender in the agricultural sector, right? So we rename it, and we say it by renaming. You write the word as, and then what name did we give it? Okay, so just write it there. Percentage. Again, you put the square brackets before, after. Percentage in the agricultural sector. Okay? All right. Are we all good?
Are you stunned by the other side of the canal stage?
Actually, is it possible to zoom in on those?
Yeah.
Can we zoom in? Try and see if you can zoom in.
I don't think we can zoom in.
Can you see? Am I blocking you down?
No. The light
The
there
light.
makes it really
Yeah.
difficult. We can close those shades.
Close this shit.
Is that better? What other change do we need to make here on this? All right, so just click on the load data really quickly, and then look at the data model view just to see what it did. So we have one table, and it's now called agricultural sector, the way we renamed it, right? And you see there's the value, instead of just saying value, it actually says percentage agricultural sector. So that when we bring in the rest for industrial sector and everything else, it should be able to distinguish it from this particular, not just called value. Okay? That's good so far. So let's go back to the data load script, and this time what we're going to do is file as part of the data that we gave you. Right? And the text file is called gender stats load script or something like that, a TXT file. So what we have done is the same thing that I just explained, we have to do it 6 times. So rather than you going through it 6 times, just copy and paste so that we can move to the next section. Try just show them how to do it so that you probably need to delete that first, right? Because, okay, so delete whatever we've just done, and you just paste everything, yeah? If you've pasted and it's you think it's fine, just click on the load data. And if you see a screen that looks like what you see displayed here, then you're good.
This arrow.
Yeah, I got an error as well.
Okay, I think we know what the error is, but let's see. So let's close that. Let's close down.
I think the script is not complete.
Was it women? No, it should be fine. Oh, connection not found. You called your connection something else?
So, yeah, I couldn't create the connection, so I had to point it to Google Drive. From earlier, whatever.
So that's where the files need to be.
Yeah, okay, so I have to.
So here, you see this?
Yep.
Is this the connector with the files? Where the files right now?
The files are on. Yeah, it's always helpful here in person too. Yeah, I'll try to use it. Yeah, I have to drop the files here.
Just point it, whatever you call click data, whatever it's on Google Drive, call it click data. Yeah? And it should be fine.
Yes.
How are we doing?
I just copied this. The same.
Delete what you have done.
I have this software beforehand, so I would have had to go there anyway. So, yeah.
I didn't say that.
You know, I signed it on Eventbrite. I just got the link this morning, and then I signed it. I was excited to see it, and so I signed it up, but I didn't see it. I mean, maybe it didn't come through my email. I don't know.
There were
So yeah, we've done all that. So this file name is different.
Because you can copy.
Yes, no, copy from
the tax file.
From tax file, sorry. I was just
sorry.
copy the
path.
just delete that.
Okay, that's why I was saying because that's where the data but you just have to I don't know. So yours come here. That's the name of the meeting.
Yeah, I didn't name like this.
Yes, this is easier. We need to time is moving. How are we doing? Not good? Okay. Let me wait for an extra 1 minute.
Alright. I don't know where I'm you can be using tea as well.
I did this. I did use in college.
And then get the file. And then click on production. It's the same as the street. All right, I have to move on. Where's my driver? My driver got lost. All right. Have a quick peek at your data model Don't worry about it right now. Remember how we do that? You go to that little navigation icon and choose a data model viewer. Have a quick peek for 15 seconds. You don't need to understand it right now. If you keep coming for our classes, I will explain the next one in one of the other courses. But you should see several tables now, and you should see lines connecting them. We are associating the data from all those different uploaded. Okay, they have some common things, for example, like name, region, country code. So they're all being joined together. Join is actually not the best word to use for click, because join means something different. They are being associated, such that later when you filter on one, you're able to see the association with the others. All right? Okay, good. So now let's start creating some charts. Okay? So we have data on many different areas. Percentage of the gender sexes that work for different sectors. We are trying to look at the usage of internet in terms of percentage, both male and female. We have, there's also something that is the percentage of, in the countries, the percentage of how many women we have in managerial positions. So we're going to look at all that later. So again, we go to the navigation icon and we click on App Overview. This is where you actually create the applications. So you remember that chart that I showed you? We've done the load script, we've done the data model, right? And we even did a few expressions there, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to create the charts. This is where we need dimensions, we need measures, and we need expressions again. So you will see a screen that says create a new sheet. And if you click on that, you can name the sheet summary. I think that's what we call it. Oh, am I blocking again? Oh, can you see? I like being next to him because I use him as my compass. Maybe I stand in the middle, then you can see. You can see on both sides of me. Don't focus too much on me. Focus on either side. All right. So, where's Amanda? Do we have any questions from YouTube?
No.
None. Okay. Cool. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to create a measure that counts how many countries were involved in this particular data set that we have. How many distinct countries do we have, right? And to do this, we use something called a KPI. It gives you a number, and later on when you filter by the different other fields, you're going to see that number continuously change. So have you created? Create on the summary, and once you're done, click on the enter, and you should have a sheet that looks like this. Right? So now in order for us to work with this sheet, we need to put it in edit mode. So there's an edit button somewhere in the more to the right of the screen, and it sets the sheet into edit mode. So this allows you to drag and drop different charts inside. So the first chart we're going to drop, if you look on your left under charts, you're going to find the KPI. It has the hashtag sign and #1 and KPI. So get it and drag it into the middle of the screen. And once you have it there, you can resize it. It doesn't need to take the whole screen. Just resize it to the top of the screen. Okay? And a KPI just needs a measure. It needs you to count something, or to aggregate something, or to average something. So what are we trying to, what did we say we're trying to do here? What are we trying to get? The country, right? So click on add measure, and then look for countries. I keep moving from the middle of the screen. Did you find it? And when you click on it, since it's a measure, it asks you, what do you want me to do? And what are we trying to do in this case? We're trying to count. Count, right? Right. So click on count, and we get 22,850 countries. Is that right? Are there that many countries in the world? Any idea why?
Because they're repeated.
It's repeated. So there's Bangladesh, 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 right? Then China, 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 then shall I go around the countries on this? I'm joking. So the way in which we make it count just each country once is there's a keyword called distinct, right? And if you click on under the measures on the right hand of the screen where you have the properties, you will see a little expression there that says count country. Yeah? So click on that little function sign, FX button, just so that you know what you're doing, and it gets you into the expression editor. So you should see like what you have on the screen right now. Are we there? Yes. Now, inside the count and inside the brackets, add the word distinct. Many people like to put it in capital letters, but it doesn't really matter. You can put it small case, larger case. And how you know that you've done it correctly is that it should appear in blue. Huh? It doesn't appear in blue? Does it appear in blue? Oh, okay. Are we there? If you have selected distinct, then just save. Just save your work. Huh? Apply. So what apply? You can't see it from here. Yeah, we have a screen there that's. I think we can take off that. Yeah, we don't need to show. Okay. Click on apply. Eh? And how many countries do we have now? Okay. I thought there were 200 yesterday. Where do we get an extra 2 countries? Yeah, these are the questions we ask ourselves sometimes, just to make sure they take this. Now, you will notice that the label of this KPI is kind of telling you what it's trying to do, right? Which you might not want to show when you're actually making a nice looking chart, right? So you can change that. Huh? Again, if you look at on the right-hand side of the screen where it says label, if that is blank, it's going to take the name of whatever field or measure you've put in there. So you could, under the label, you could write the word country. Huh? And press the enter button. Oh, just press enter on your keyboard. And it should change. Yeah? Okay. So this analysis is about 202 countries. Okay, what else do we want to try and do? All right. So these countries, if you looked at the data, they were kind of rolled up into regions. Eh? So let's find out how many regions we have, how many regions all these countries belong to. Eh? So we could get the KPI again, and we could go through the process, or we could edit, copy this, paste it, and then change whatever the second one is trying to look at. Eh? If you right-click on that chart and click on copy, then click away on the empty space and click on paste, you have now 2 of the same KPIs, yeah? But for the second KPI, where it goes in and you have the expression of count country, change that to count region. And because region, remember, is a dimension. Region is a field. So if you did it correctly, you should see it displayed in orange. That's orange, right? There's so many colors in the picture. We good? And then you click on apply. And then you change the label, because the label you copied it before it was country. Eh? Now we want to say region. Eh? Right? So these are 202 countries in 11 regions. Okay? Aren't you all feeling like experts now? Yeah. It's easy, right?
Copy another one.
Can I copy another one? Okay. Now, we want to create, we're going to call it a master dimension. Remember, I talked to you about dimensions and measures, and I said a dimension was a field, right? So what we want to do is we want to create a master dimension to make it drill down, right? we want to start from the level of region. And if someone selects a region, automatically drills down to the countries inside that region. And because we're going to use this many times, all right, we create what is called a master dimension, something that can be reused in different charts, right? So on the, that's my left, my right. On the left-hand side, there's a master items icon that looks like a chain link. If you click on it, you get the option either to create a dimension or a measure or visualization. We want to create a master dimension. So click on dimension and click on create new. All right? Now, the first thing you want to do, because it's a drill down, you don't need to do this always, is you change the selection to drill down from single. Right? And then the first field that we want to make this part of the drill down is the region. So you just click on that. Under the fields box, it creates that as the first level of the drill down, right? And then you look for country, click on it, and it's the second one. Have to do here, we have to give this a name, call it region underscore country, so that you understand, or some people want to call it region drill down. Region underscore country sounds good. Spelling. As part of a dimension that can be used for many different charts. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we want to create the other, or shall we just go ahead and create the bar charts first?
Just take a look at the chart first.
No, I'm thinking what best to do to make it easy to understand. We just create the other dimensions, the other master dimensions?
Yeah.
Master measures. Okay, so we're going to create several charts, right? And just the way we created a master dimension, we're going to create master measures that can be used in different charts, right? So the first one we want to do is we want to look at the percentage of female workers in the agricultural sector, okay? When I say things like female workers, that means there is probably an if. Do you know the little if function? Learn how to use the if function. How lucky are you? Okay, so let's get to measures and create new. Okay, and we want to create a measure. So what do we need to do? We need a measure as an aggregate, right? Two is we're trying to count. We're trying to get the average. Sorry, we're trying to get the average depending on the dimension that we will use. All right, of female workers in a particular sector, right? So the first thing we do is we get the average of, you remember the percent agricultural sector that you had put in a script before? You can use the expression editor, look for the fields, and that shows you all the fields. So you select agricultural sector, and once you've selected it in the field, you click on aggregation, because we want to average it. And then once you're done with that, you click on insert, the insert button, and you should see the expression written out for you. Or you could just type out this expression. And as you keep typing it out, it will give you suggestions. And how you know you're right is the field is in orange, and a function or a keyword is normally in blue. Okay? All right. Now, we want to do a little more than this, right? Because this will just count everyone, but we want to make it specifically for female, right? So how do we do that? If, write it out so that I explain, because I've forgotten. All right? If that value, all right, is equal to female, are you writing? Oh, okay. Actually, you're right. So remember, we had a field, part of the table. Just type it out, finish typing. Put the comma in as we wait for everyone to type that. This is probably as complicated as we're going to get today. So So basically what we're saying here,
Read out what you're typing, you cannot see at all.
you can't see. So it says average, right? And then you put in the brackets of the whole thing, right? And then inside those brackets, you put the word if, and you put a second set of brackets inside that. And what we're trying to average is the agricultural sector equals female. So when it goes through and it's counting, if it finds sex equals male, it doesn't. Okay, so if sex equals female, comma, then put this percent agricultural sector, what we have loaded in the table. Oh yeah, there you go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Excellent. Making my job easier. Are we doing exercise? Huh? We have half an hour left. Huh?
Yeah.
I still have a lot I need to show you. So. Are we all there?
Show the flashes.
Huh? Oh, copying.
Language is pretty straight. It's more straightforward than like MATLAB or.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. So I apply. Can we create?
Yeah, one thing before you create, right? This whole whole expression that you've done, just right-click and copy it, because we're going to use it to create two more, and we don't want to type everything again over and over again. Bring it up again. Just put that big if thing there, the average thing again. Just put it on the screen.
Yeah, it's just it will be another, not here, but this is one expression.
Click on OK if you're done. Eh?
Apply.
Where is the apply? Oh, it's over there.
Apply. And what do we want to call this again? Okay, so just click on it. Are we? We're good? Okay. So click on apply.
Sorry?
And give it a name.
Okay, go here. Overview. We'll give you the overview of the application. If you want to add new sheet, just create a new sheet. Put the
Okay.
name, whatever you want.
We can put a label actually, yeah? But it's okay. No, that's an expression. We're not going to do that now.
Click here.
Okay? Copy that script first. It doesn't matter. And click on create. Okay? So we've created one measure for the agricultural sector. So we want to do this for the industrial sector and for the service sector. Okay? So in this, the next thing to do is click on the create again for a second master measure. Paste what you did. Paste what you copied. And where it says percent agricultural sector, we're just going to change that to percent industrial sector.
And then when you hit the apply button, instead of this, he has this formula
expression.
average. Okay, it's not correct.
No, oh, the 9.
ABG.
You there? Okay? The reason why we copy pasted it so that it's easy for you to be able to. And if you're done with that, click on apply, create a new one, and paste again. And we're going to call it, the third one is service, right? Service, percent service sector.
There, yes. You copy and paste.
Click on apply. So are you seeing the direction where we're going here? What we're trying to do? We're going to use this as 3 ways to compare how the gender distribution is in the particular sectors for different regions and countries. Huh? Okay? All right. Shall we move on? We have exactly 30 minutes. I'm trying to finish on time. Okay. So let's create a bar chart really quickly. Okay. So we go back and you get the charts icon when the master dimension icon, right? We go back to the chart and we click on bar chart and we drag it and drop it into the middle of the screen. And again, you can resize it how you like. Bar chart. And can someone guess what the dimension we're going to use here is? Created it. Region country, right? The drill down, huh? So add dimension and select region country. And then we're going to add 3 measures. Which ones are they?
Oh, okay.
So add the first measure, agricultural sector. And we already see something happening on the screen, right? Then once you've added a measure, if you look to the right-hand side of the screen, it gives you the option to add more than 1 measure. Okay, so the reason why we did that seemingly cryptic was just so that it makes it easy for us when we're building the charts, huh? And we don't have to keep typing those same expressions again, huh? Right? And it was, remember, our measure is averaging, and what we're trying to do is average for just the cases when the sex is female. Huh? Okay, so what do we have on the screen now? Nothing.
Yeah, we have 3 of them. Wow.
Even here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me just go quickly and make sure you're all good.
Yeah, we already had everything.
Okay, so show me your
I have the cloud set up, so I don't know if I have all the right data plugged in. Yeah, I only have 1 table.
That's why. Okay.
Okay, so can't it point to the adjusted data?
Because the idea of this is like let's really
Put random name here, everything over the
Okay, random. And then add dimension?
where you
It's technically here, but I don't know why it's not. Oh, that's okay. That's all right. That's okay. Let's see. I'll add a name, random. And then I'll add dimension. Okay, dimension added.
So I'm just kind of doing some
now, and then they were saying go to the
I do like control F. Well, I have to change it everywhere.
Yeah, but I want to check the exercises and my teams. And well,
Change this because that's loaded fine before. Agricultural data is fine. It's the
because we missed somewhere in the middle.
It's okay. That's okay.
low data.
to see how they work.
You know, I'm trying to like skip a bunch of steps and try to get a chart so I can have that, you know, that. Yeah, I have a chart, but
So,
yeah,
you can.
this is really cool.
But how do you load the file, load the data?
That's the
Exactly.
Maybe just
Yeah, I just pointed it to.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how
It would be better to yes,
Do we have any insights from this chart that we just created? Insight? Can anyone tell me anything? Does it make any sense? Fred, make the thing a bit bigger. Just put it on the full screen. Let's see if we can get any insight from this data. What does it tell us? It tells us that for most regions, right, the percentage of females where it's the highest is in the service sector, right? And where is it at the lowest?
Industrial.
Sometimes industrial, sometimes agricultural. It depends on the. Anything else you see by region? Right? South Asia, Central Asia, it seems that there's more in the agricultural sector. There's a larger, okay? So with those many looking data files, if you quickly drag and drop, you can make a quick analysis and try and get to see what we are seeing now, okay? Does everyone agree with that analysis? Yes, no? It's up for debate. We have had very interesting discussions about how to interpret the data.
Can we drill down right now?
Yes. Try and drill down. Select one region. And then click on the little green check mark you find on the chart. And once what does it show you after you drill down? It now, for that particular region, it shows you all the countries, right? Were you all able to drill down? Click on any region. No, click on done first. Oh, you have to get out of edit mode by clicking on the done button, okay? So that you do the analysis. Huh? When you're actually looking at the charts, they're done in the usual mode. Huh? When you're trying to work with them and make changes, you do it in the edit mode. Huh? Out of the edit mode and you select. You can select more than one. Yeah, select another region. Once you select the first one. And then once you're done with your selection, there's a little green check mark at the top of the chart. Eh? Select it, and then it shows you based on that. And the good thing you can see is that, Fred, make it a bit smaller.
One region.
The good thing you'll see is that the KPIs that we created before are also filtered to reflect the count of just the selections that you've made. All right? Isn't this the coolest thing you've ever seen? Yes? Do I need to convince you some more? You want more? Okay, let's go. Let's create something else. Huh? What do we want to create next? Not a pie chart. We want to do the line trends. Huh? Okay? So in the data, we also had some data for different years. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to try and see this same information over the years as a trend. Eh? So we could go and edit. No, just click on edit. Make the thing smaller. So we could go and get a new line chart and go through the processes. Actually, maybe that's easier than copying and pasting. Huh? Maybe it's easier because we have already done the master dimension. So, or you could copy this and just say, I want to change it into a line chart. Huh? But no, let's make it simple. Let's do it from scratch. So drag the line chart, and bring it in. And in this case, the dimension that I'm looking for, because I want to compare over several years, the dimension will be years. Okay? And then I want to add 3 measures. Agricultural sector. Second one is industrial. And the third one is service sector. Okay? And you should see the line chart as is being shown there. So we're looking at the same thing, but we're spreading it over years. Does it tell us anything else interesting? There seems to be a steady increase in the service sector for females, right? It generally seems to be going up, right? Whereas the blue one is agricultural sector is the blue one, no? Seems to be trending downwards over the years. Okay? So now I must say, this data, just as a caveat, there are some countries that have very little data, and there's some years where the data was not there, right? So it might not show you everything, but that's not really what we're trying to do here. I'm just basically trying to show you the analytics. You also have to make sure that the data you have is, you select the correct charts and the analysis that corresponds with making sure you get the right interpretation. Okay, so you can, let's make this fancier. What can we try and do? Can we try and do it as an area chart of each other and make it into an area chart to make it look a bit more presentable, or to give a different name? So under the settings, when it's selected and you go down to appearance, the section, there's one of the subsections there that says presentation. See there, presentation? And then right now the line is selected. You can make it into an area chart. And once you make it into an area chart, you could do it as a stacked area chart if you like, right? Depending on what you're trying to look for, right? Then that way, then it shows you the areas. Based on the area, it's easier to see where the bigger portion is. The other thing we could do, for example, is you could add data points if it makes more sense to you. So there's a little button there that says show data points. And I think the data points show better when you show it as a line chart, right? Instead of an area chart. So select that as line. And again, you see that different. Okay? We all good? Yes? No? No?
We cannot find this way.
So this. Don't worry about that. Those are single small things. All the three measures.
Yeah, I'm just here. So this looks okay. And if I earn service,
so let's see what you have.
Like let this be. Oh, you selected the area tab rather than the line chart.
No, but was that you select using the line chart?
And where is service? Yes. And then
yeah, I know, but we all seems like the data sets are
Yeah.
so what's let me finish. And then after that, if you have some time, I'm sure we'll find it.
Yes.
And you just check.
Yes. The best way to see is and the colors
So I come here, I can see the data.
All right, we have 15 minutes. Let's do one more, just to make sure I've convinced you. Yeah.
We're not done with the area.
Sorry?
We done with the area.
Yeah, yeah. I was just showing you the different ways in which you can do it. Right? So you just click on area to show. Yes. Yes. So you drill down, you select a region, and once you select the region, then it shows the countries for that region.
Okay, within the time series, right?
Well, we didn't, within the time series, we haven't actually created countries here. But if you select this region, a specific region, Fred, just go there and select, right? If you select a specific region, the chart changes to correspond to just that region, right? Did it change?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I want to do one more, and we're going to do a scatter plot. So we found this analysis very interesting. Here is a premise. We were looking at the level of education, okay, in different countries, and how many female versus male get more than a tertiary education, meaning university education, right? And we're trying to compare that with the level of women management in different countries, right? So what we should see is that if you have an increase in education, or if you have an increase in percent of education, for example, like developed countries, you should see an increase in the percentage of women managers, right? So we got data from DESA. Our DESA colleague is there. How has gone, right? Oh, I didn't see it. You keep moving. So let's see whether this data actually bears out, right? And one way in which we can do this analysis is using what we call a scatter plot. Huh? A scatter plot is a type of it's like a bubble chart, but shows you two different dimensions, right? Have you ever heard of when people do analysis and they do the magic quadrant? And there's supposed to be a certain analysis on the x-axis and on the y-axis. And if you are in the best position, you're right somewhere down at the top, right? So as you continue, it should be a line that curves up this way, or a chart, right? So let's use this scatter plot and see if it bears out the analysis that we were looking at. Now, so what we're going to do is, because now this screen is full, you can't continue scrolling down. Huh? There's a certain real estate, a number of boxes that you have, and once that's full, it's suggested to put your other data in a different data file. I mean, in a different sheet. That's what we're going to do now. So on the top right hand of the screen, that navigation, you can use that to create a new sheet. Huh? So we're going to create a new sheet and call it scatter plot. Huh?
Okay. Didn't name it though. Okay.
You can call it anything. This one I really don't mind, but in case you want to look at it later. And once you're done, just hit the enter key and click on the sheet, and you should have a brand new sheet waiting for you. Okay, and if you have that sheet, make sure it's in edit mode, and then look for the scatter plot and drag it to the screen. Huh? Okay. And in this case, for the scatter plot, what the dimension that we're looking at? because we're trying to look at the regions and the countries, right? Okay, we're trying to compare the different countries, more developed ones to see versus the ones that are less developed, or and see this data. So when you add dimension, you add region, country. Remember that drill down that we used? And then we want to add two measures, right? The first one is, these are different, so we need to type these ones out, right? Oh, I promised them that we're not going to get crazy with the scripts again. You should have told me that there are more scripts.
So this is why you need to write down.
Oh, okay, so there are no scripts here.
Oh, okay.
So what are we looking for here? We're looking for tertiary education.
Can change the
Do we start with tertiary education, or do we start with women managers?
I see.
So women managers, all we need to do here is get the average number. So for each region or for each country, we want to see the average number. That's the first one. And then the second one is we want to see the average number of women who have achieved at least a tertiary education, right? So in this case, we select tertiary education and we select average, but we have to put the if again, right? Because this one has female. Huh? For the women managers, the data was just female alone. Huh? But for the tertiary education, there was both male and female. So we take off the male data by putting just the if condition and saying if single quote female with a capital F, you put a comma, and then tertiary education, and you close.
Can give you another one. This one. Single quotes. Average is.
Any questions from the internet?
So what's the first step? And create a new measurement?
So when we created the scatter plot, the dimension we gave was the region country, because that's what we're going to compare. And then on one axis, we want to put the percentage of women managers. And on the other axis, we want to put the level of education, the percentage that received a tertiary education or above, right? And we want to see, the analysis we want to make is that as the education for the females go higher, you should expect more women managers in the sector. We want to see whether this actually bears out. Okay?
You just need to close the.
Are we good? Shall we move on?
Only the woman rather than the male and other two sexes also, no? Male, female, and both sexes. So at the moment we are only selecting the average of the women rather than male, female, and both sexes. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at it. So as education increases, women managers increase in developed regions.
Oh, I keep stepping on this cable and it's.
Is that what you're saying? This one makes sense. It's not really that.
So if you're done with that, just click on the apply, okay?
The education level, and this is the
And let's see what we have.
women who are
So it's
managers.
just mapping where they.
Which so developed regions have higher education level.
Is it strong correlation? Is that what that's saying? Between the two?
Yeah.
In the developed region.
So developed. Yeah.
Okay?
And there's a lower.
Yeah, switch the X and Y. Make it easy.
It's correlation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a low correlation here, high correlation here, and this way.
So under the measures, make the average female percentage of tertiary education the top one, and make the women managers the bottom one, just to make them. You're just switching the X and Y axis, just to make it easier to look at the data. Let's try and have a look and see what it says. So what can we see from the analysis? Right? So what we're trying to show here is on the axis where we have the women managers, the percentage, right? Where we have the ones with the most is we have like Oceania, right? And others, right? Now, what we notice is a place like Oceania, actually the tertiary education is very low, right? So just because you have a place like the developed regions that has a very high percentage of tertiary education for females, the actual percentage of women being higher doesn't bear out. It doesn't matter how much education that the females, at least from the data, from what we're seeing from the data, right? So that's one interesting thing we found out when we were looking at this data to do the analysis. Do you understand the way I put it? Any questions on that? Okay. We have 5 minutes left. And now, this thing is cool, right?
Learn that no education is needed.
You learn something, yeah? You know, they say at least you wake up every day, you're going to learn something new. So I'm going to use the rest of the 5 minutes just to get questions and to get discussions, to get observations.
So you can explain.
only have one data.
You only have one data point?
So this is with the increase of education, the average women are managers. It's like it's leveled out. Yeah. It's better in Latin America.
Asia.
But this is average. Over time or
Average?
currently?
Currently.
It's the current
Overall,
average. I'm living in Latin America. Thank you so much.
Okay, so there are still a few people with questions, and I'm going to stay here until we're able to answer all of them. But at this point, I would like to thank all of you for coming and for attending. And I'd like to ask all of you to become our ambassadors, okay? We have this group of people in the UN that we call ourselves the clickers. We'd like to have as many clickers as possible, so please spread the word. We also have Connections, Unite Connections community. It's called Unite Analytics. And normally, if you become a member there, we tell you about the latest trainings that are going on. And we also share information. And if you're looking for stuff like trying to find out what other people did or more tutorials, you're going to find them in there. Usually, Click also has trainings similar to what we have done here today. And the recordings of those trainings in WebEx are also in that community. All right? So OICT is also happy to work with you to build your, our capacity is small. That's why we are trying to promote self-service. But we are happy to help you and to help host for you some of these dashboards. Once you're done creating them, give us a call. Let us know, and we'll host them for you, and we'll help you put them up. And then we'll go from there. Okay? So with that, I'd like to thank everyone so much for coming. We also like to thank Dessa, Aoi, and Masrad for giving us the support today. And we also have Karen and Amanda and Jorge and Fred not on the screen, so they might not be seen to everyone, but everyone in the room can see them. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you in the next one, which we're going to have probably next month. It'll be the same thing, but we're going to choose a different theme. Maybe human rights or something like that. So thank you. Huh?
Thank you.
All right.